Clara Bennett was raised in the expansive plains of Colorado, within a contemporary home brimming with books, scientific instruments, and simulation screens. Her father, Michael Bennett, was a well-regarded professor of aerospace engineering at the University of Denver. With a passion for the mechanics of flight, he spent his evenings captivated by the intricacies of Bernoulli's principles and the workings of jet engines. Clara, a curious and brilliant child, often found herself engrossed in his tales of propulsion, altitude, thrust, and resistance, spending hours absorbing his knowledge. At just 8 years old, during a trip to San Francisco, Clara was invited by a stewardess to step into the cockpit of an airplane. The dazzling array of buttons, screens, and the breathtaking view from the cockpit window left her utterly mesmerized. On that day, she made a promise to herself: one day, she would fly a plane. However, as the years went by, she came to understand that achieving her dream would not be straightforward. The world of aviation remained predominantly male. In her aeronautics classes, Clara often found herself as the sole woman amongst her peers. Some instructors expressed condescension, while a few colleagues referred to her as the little one, despite her exemplary professionalism. She faced the constant challenge of proving herself, with every maneuver scrutinized and every decision questioned. Undeterred, Clara pursued her ambitions with unwavering resolve. After years of rigorous training, countless late nights spent studying flight plans, and extensive simulator hours, she earned her commercial pilot's license at the age of 25. Just 3 years later, she became a co-pilot with Skyward Airlines, where she quickly earned the respect and trust of her crew. Despite her rapid ascent in the field, an elusive sensation lingered within her. Each flight above the clouds and every sunset glimpsed from the cockpit stirred a deep emotion, something that felt like a blend of beauty and solitude. Although the sky invigorated her spirit, it also left an undeniable emptiness within. Unbeknownst to her, this silent yearning would soon find a resolution, in the very skies she cherished. On what seemed to be an ordinary flight from Toronto to Doha, Clara had her customary coffee, meticulously checked the flight plan, and conferred with her crew before settling into the cockpit alongside her co-pilot for the day, Idris Kaya. Idris was a reserved man in his 40s, of Turkish descent, recently transitioned to transatlantic flights. While not particularly chatty, his calm demeanor provided a sense of reassurance. Clara noticed a small rosary hanging quietly from one of the flight instruments, but gave it little thought. However, midway across the Atlantic, the situation took a dramatic turn. A storm loomed on the horizon, appearing suddenly and without warning on the radar. The cockpit lights flickered ominously as the sky darkened, and turbulent winds rattled the aircraft. Passengers, filled with concern, clung tightly to their seats while safety instructions reverberated throughout the cabin. Clara exerted every effort to maintain control of the plane as it lost altitude intermittently, the crosswinds rendering the controls unstable. In the midst of the chaos, she caught sight of Idris, his eyes closed, murmuring what appeared to be a prayer. There was no panic, no hint of fear, just a quiet, serene focus about him. After a moment, he opened his eyes, gently placed his hand on the controls, and spoke to her in a calm, steady voice. "Don't worry, just keep flying. We're not alone." Clara sat in the cockpit, her body tense and her focus unwavering. Then, as if conjured by magic, the clouds began to part. A warm golden light streamed through the gaps, and the chaotic turbulence subsided almost instantly. The instruments in her cockpit stabilized, and the aircraft's trajectory corrected itself seamlessly. The abrupt change left Clara momentarily frozen, struggling to comprehend how such a fierce storm could vanish so suddenly. Once she had safely guided the aircraft to its destination, Clara took a moment to linger in the cockpit, reflecting on the surreal experience she had just endured. Was it merely a trick of meteorology, or was there something more at play? As Idris exited the cockpit, he glanced back with a simple smile and offered a profound thought: sometimes, faith travels through clouds faster than light. This flight not only covered physical distance but also ignited a burning question in Clara's mind: what if she wasn't truly alone up there? Since that enigmatic flight, Clara found herself unable to think as she once did. An internal shift had taken place. Every time her mind drifted back to the way the storm vanished, the peculiar light, and Idris's almost otherworldly calm, a nagging question loomed: could there be more to existence than what science explained? Initially, she began her search quietly. Upon returning to Denver, her evenings were devoted to reading, watching videos, and listening to testimonials. She stumbled upon new concepts that piqued her interest: Tawhid, the voluntary submission to God, and the idea of prayer as the anchoring of the heart. Most intriguingly, she discovered the close connection between the universe, its laws, and a higher divine will. For a scientist like Clara, these notions didn't seem irrational; rather, they ignited a genuine, almost logical curiosity within her. One day, while perusing a forum for women pilots, she came across the profile of Leila Marwan, an aeronautical engineer who had embraced Islam several years prior. Intrigued, Clara reached out to her with a private message. A few days later, they met at a quiet cafe. Leila, soft-spoken and composed, answered all of Clara's questions with unwavering conviction, sharing her personal journey filled with doubts, discoveries, and the profound peace she had found along the way. "You know, Clara, sometimes we spend our lives flying above the clouds without ever pausing to ask ourselves, where are we really flying to?" Leila's words lingered in Clara's mind. Inspired, Clara began reading translations of the Quran, posing her questions to Leila and a local Muslim teacher. Each passage resonated deeply, feeling like answers to queries she hadn't even articulated. Far from indoctrination, it became a thoughtful exploration spurred by curiosity, an open heart, and that mysterious light she had glimpsed over the Mediterranean months earlier. Several months after immersing herself in these readings and discussions, Clara found herself on a night flight from Lisbon to Amman, a route with which she was intimately familiar. The skies were initially clear, and the passengers slept soundly; everything was as routine as could be. But then, without warning, the technology failed them. On the fringes of the Mediterranean, nestled between Crete and Cyprus, the navigation systems began to falter. Suddenly, without any warning, the instrument panel plunged into darkness for several moments. Silence enveloped them. The cockpit was engulfed in blackness, even the screens appeared to freeze, leaving only the low hum of the engines to break the stillness. In the frigid height of the altitude, Clara felt a rush of adrenaline course through her veins. This kind of malfunction could spell disaster. She swiftly enacted emergency protocols, rebooting the secondary systems. Meanwhile, her co-pilot attempted to re-establish radio contact, but his efforts proved fruitless. A wave of unease washed over her. As they neared a remote air corridor above the sea, something peculiar began to unfold. A soft yet radiant light emerged on the right side of the aircraft. It was not a plane, a star, or even lightning. Instead, it hung in the air, still and silent, like a glowing beacon, almost as if it were protective. Captivated, Clara gently adjusted her course towards it. Moments later, the onboard systems abruptly reset, the radars rebooted, and the radios crackled back to life. Just like that, the plane was fully under her control again. The remainder of the flight passed without incident. Yet that peculiar light, a mysterious presence in an otherwise calm sky, left an indelible mark on Clara. It wasn't a mere hallucination; her co-pilot had witnessed it as well, and spoke of it with the same quiet awe. Days later, Clara found herself seated in the serene silence of a small Islamic center in Houston, dressed in simple attire, as she uttered the words of the Shahada. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasul Allah. I bear witness that there is no divinity but God, and that Muhammad is his messenger. This moment was not a departure from her past but rather a continuation, an alignment of what she had seen, experienced, and believed. Clara Bennett's conversion did not go unnoticed by those around her. When she shared the news with her family, reactions varied. Her mother looked at her with a mix of confusion and worry. But why? You had everything, a brilliant career. You didn't need religion. Clara attempted to explain that, despite her achievements, she was still in search of something essential, meaning. She sought a leadership that transcended ambition and success. At work, the responses were no gentler. Some colleagues sidestepped the topic, while others broached it bluntly. So, are you going to wear a veil now? Will you be praying in the cockpit? Yet amidst the skepticism, unexpected support began to emerge. Flight attendants, whom Clara had perceived as distant, approached her quietly to offer their respect. I admire your conviction. It takes courage. Determined not to hide her faith, Clara chose to express it with grace, intelligence, and respect. She adapted her uniform to include a discreet scarf that adhered to safety regulations, framing her choice not as submission but as a personal elevation. Drawing from her experiences, she initiated a mentorship program for young girls aspiring to be pilots, particularly those from minority or underrepresented backgrounds in aviation. Clara aimed to demonstrate that it was possible to be a woman, a believer, a Muslim, and fly the world's most advanced aircraft without contradiction. 3 years after her conversion, Clara no longer viewed aviation merely as a career but as a profound responsibility, to guide lives to their destinations while staying true to her spiritual journey. She often imparted this wisdom to her students. You can follow 1,000 flight plans, but there is only one path to inner peace. Each time she settled into the cockpit, her hands gripping the controls and her gaze fixed on the horizon, she silently whispered to her heart, "O Lord, guide me as you guide my wings."